Hello my fellow Earthlings, I'm here to inform you that logic can't be with you for the Christmas season, but that he's perfectly
They are blindly
fine and not tied to the floor in my special room for
following the
recreational abuse at all.
all the other human
Speak with my hand, I'm not interested.
Hello, I'm Jay.
And I'm R, and we're from the Rational Channel.
That was weird.
all the other human beings, most of them, they are blindly following their parents. The Christian, he is a Christian because father is a Christian. The person is a Hindu because father is a Hindu. Most of the Muslims are Muslims because their father is a Muslim.
So what you're basically saying is that most religious people are religious because of being lazy, or at least used to it, and not because they critically examine what their parents told them.
This atheist is thinking. His father, his parents may be religious, but he does not believe in the gods which his parents worship.
It sounds like this guy is arguing against religion.
It kinda does, doesn't it?
Most of the atheists, we realize, have become atheists because they believe in science and technology.
Most atheists realize they have become atheists because they lack a belief in a god. You can be super Christian and still believe in science and technology, and you can be super atheist and not believe in any god at all, and at the same time believe that the earth is flat, the moon is fake, and vaccines cause autism.
These people think that science is advanced so much, we don't require any scripture, we don't require any religion, etc.
Atheism isn't tied into any technological success. It is purely just dependent on the non-acceptance of any God claim. It just turns out that critical thinking is as good for technological advancement as it is for reducing people's gullibility. The better you understand reality, the less likely you are to find unsubstantiated magic stories convincing.
The first question I asked to the atheist is that suppose there is an equipment, there is a machinery which no one in the world has ever seen before. If it's brought in front of you, if it's brought in front of the atheist, and if we ask the question to him that who will be the first person who will be able to tell you the mechanism of this machinery or this object, what can be his reply?
At that point, probably nobody, because you have just stated that nobody has ever seen it before. By the way, how can you be certain that nobody has ever seen it before? You certainly saw it before me. Someone may have seen it before you. Aside from that, I think it would be quite hard for us to tell if it is equipment or machinery in the first place, unless it actually resembles something or has parts of something that we have seen before and therefore can compare to it. But to get to your question, unless that machine has an important function, which it probably doesn't, since nobody ever saw it and therefore also never used it, even a layman like me could start observing it and tinker around with it to figure out what it does.
What can he reply? Suppose a machinery who no one in the world has seen, if it's brought in front of the atheist and he's asked the question, who will be the first person who will tell you the mechanism of this machinery or object?
I think you were trying to imply that the atheist would ask the person who designed that machinery, but this would be begging the question, because how can you determine it is a machine if you were the first person to see this object? Iseth is right, you can't know if you were the first person to observe it, and furthermore, if you are going to label it or even begin to describe it, then you must be comparing it to something that you have seen before. So the question I would ask is, how can we determine it is designed before we search for the designer?
The reply the atheist will give you is the first person who will tell you the mechanism is the manufacturer. Some may say the creator, some may say the inventor, some may say the producer. Whatever they say, it will be somewhat similar. Either they say the creator, the manufacturer, the producer, the inventor. It will be somewhat similar. Just keep it at the back of your mind.
Yeah, that's totally the only answer, except we just gave you a completely different one. If we have an unknown object, a creator of that object is an assumption, and it has to be proven. And so does the assumption that it is a machine as well, by the way. But since you mention it, why are you assuming one creator? Why not a committee? Why not teamwork? Your baseless claims are not only extra work for us to prove or disprove, but they're also utterly useless. They don't tell us anything concerning the machine, or its build-up, or its function.
Then ask him the next question. That how did our universe come into existence?
Okay, I could have guessed your analogy was referring to the universe. It's interesting that you worded that question so differently to your first one. First you asked, how can we determine the mechanism of machinery which no one has seen before, and which by definition implies a creator, and also, which we have pointed out would likely be determined by comparing it to non-machinery. Then you asked, how did the universe come into existence? But the universe isn't necessarily created. That needs to be proven first, and we don't have any points of comparison for the universe like we do with a piece of machinery. So the universe doesn't fit into your analogy.
So the atheist will tell us that initially there was a primary nebula.
A what?
A primary nebula. Primary nebula. Then there was a big bang. There was a secondary separation which gave rise to galaxies, the sun, the moon, and the earth on which we live. This we call as a big bang.
Where have I heard this argument before?
All the matter in the universe was drawn into this little tiny dot, and it spun faster and faster. This is what they teach the kids. Some kids doing this for homework tonight, right? It spun faster and faster. One day, it exploded. Big bang.
Jesus fucking Christ, Kent.
I don't know if you copied him, or he copied you, or you both copied someone else, but you're both idiots.
A universe is not a nebula. Nebula is different from a universe. What the hell is wrong with you?
I need something to drink.
As terrible as that was, it was also a non sequitur. Firstly, atheism is not contingent on the Big Bang. Some atheists may not accept the Big Bang. Secondly, I don't see how this relates to your analogy from before. Where are you going with this? Also, how am I still talking?
When did you come to know about this creation of the universe? So he will tell you, about 30, 40 years back, the scientists that discovered this.
Scientists never discovered anything about the universe being created. Not now, and not 30 to 40 years ago.
You ask him the question, but what you're talking about the Big Bang is already mentioned in the Quran, in Surah Anbiya, chapter number 21, verse number 30, which says, Avalam yaral lazina kafaru. Do not the unbelievers see anna samawati wal arda kanat ratkan fataqnahuma, that the heavens and the earth were joined together and we clove them asunder.
Yeah, okay, fine. That passage is just as detailed as the entire field of astrophysics. Saying things came from the heavens and the earth joining together clearly is as detailed as all the math and evidence behind the Big Bang. No, it's a very vague statement that could be interpreted in a lot of different ways. Unless it describes the actual math and precise mechanisms of the Big Bang, then that's totally a stupid claim. If we had the Quran since the 7th century, how come it took us this long to reach this understanding of astrophysics? Do we suck at reading so badly that we can't get the mechanism by which the universe came into being by such a simple and clear passage? Or is it just that the passage is so vague and indirect that it's impossible to extract any constructive information from it? Hindsight is 2020. If you had a history of people explaining the Big Bang in the exact mechanism as we know it to have happened now, then you may have a point. But prior to the Big Bang being theorized in mainstream science, there weren't any Muslim scholars describing the Big Bang in any way that is substantially representative of how we understand it now. If knowledge of the Quran directly influenced the study of astrophysics and clearly led scientists to the Big Bang, then you might have an argument. But as you pointed out, we only gained insight into the Big Bang within the last few decades. It's also important to realize that the Big Bang may not be correct. Science can be and has been wrong before and adapts to new evidence. So will you still be quoting that verse as evidence if the scientific evidence changes?
What you're talking about the Big Bang is already mentioned in the Quran 1400 years ago.
You have no clue whatsoever about the origin of the universe, and you just stated that your clearly flawed version of the Big Bang is in the Quran. So, no matter how you put it, and whether people deny your claim because the verse is too vague, or deny your claim because your Big Bang knowledge is wrong, you have just proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that your book is absolutely useless concerning real life and scientific claims about it.
Who could have mentioned that? So the atheist will say, maybe it's a fluke.
Or wrong?
No problem. Don't argue with him. You continue. The light of the moon, is it its own light or reflected light? So the atheist will tell us that previously we thought the moon has its own light. Recently we have come to know in science, recently means 100 years back, 200 years back, we have come to know that the light of the moon is not its own light but a reflected light.
Not quite. The first person to describe that the moon got its light from the sun was Anaxagoras, who lived 510 to 428 BCE.
The Quran mentions 1400 years ago in Surah Furqan, chapter number 25, verse number 61, that blessed is he who had placed the constellation in the sky and placed therein a lamp, a sun, having its own light, and moon having reflected light or borrowed light. The Arabic word used for moonlight in the Quran is munir or nur, meaning reflected light or borrowed light.
There are a lot of problems with this, and I will just grant you that the Quran actually says that, which I have a strong suspicion that it either doesn't really say that, or just the translation borrowed light is a bit sketchy. If the Quran says the moon reflects light, and we confirm it reflects light, that proves that the Quran was right that the moon reflects light. That proves literally nothing else. There are multiple verses from the Quran that we know can't be true given our understanding of reality, such as the splitting of the moon in half, the earth being the center of the universe, and where it says milk comes from. So now we have a book that has a lot of ridiculous stuff in it and a few right things. Even a broken watch is right 2 times a day. That doesn't prove that the watch is reliable at predicting time consistently.
Who could have mentioned in the Quran 1400 years ago that the light of the moon is not its own light but reflected light, which we have come to know recently?
Again, it was a Greek called Anaxagoras, not your prophet.
The atheist may say, your prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, maybe he was an intelligent man.
Up to this point, if one would trust your words, which I don't, you have shown us, even if somewhat unknowingly, that your prophet copied a guy living 1,000 years before him and that he had the Big Bang wrong. I have no idea if he was smart, but he sure as hell wasn't right.
Don't argue with him. Continue. The world that we live on, what's the shape of this earth on which we live? The atheist will tell you it is spherical. When did we come to know? So he will tell us, it was 1597 when Sir Francis Drake, when he sailed around the earth, that he proved that the earth was spherical.
Wow, that's impressive. Actually, no. Our smart fellows the Greeks got that one first too. Around the times of Plato and Aristotle, it was already very prevalent to believe that the earth was a sphere. And there were attempts to measure the circumference of the earth too. The best known attempt was from the mathematician Eratosthenes, who lived 276 to 195 BCE. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he got it from them. The proof that the earth was spherical came much later, by the circumnavigation of Magellano and Elcano in 1519 to 1522. But proven and assumed are 2 different things, and the Quran wasn't the first in either of them.
But the Quran says 1400 years ago, in Surah Naziyat, chapter number 79, verse number 30, Wal arda ba'da zalika dahaha. And thereafter, we have made the earth egg-shaped. The Arabic word dahaha, one of its meaning is the earth is an expanse. The other meaning is derived from the Arabic word duya, which means an egg. And it doesn't refer to a normal egg. It refers to the egg of an ostrich.
Whoa, swing and a miss there, buddy.
And we know the world is not completely round like a ball, but it is geospherical in shape. It is starting from the pole.
Geospherical simply means shaped like the earth. And the earth is shaped like the earth no matter where you start.
And if you analyze the shape of the egg of an ostrich, that too is geospherical in shape.
Nope, the earth is an oblate spheroid. It has the poles slightly squished. The egg, on the other hand, is a prolate spheroid. It has the poles stretched. If you wanted to have a proper analogy, he could have simply chosen an orange instead, and it would have been a much better comparison.
Who could have mentioned 1400 years ago that the shape of the earth is geospherical?
Everyone who thought the earth was shaped exactly like the earth. However, unlike you, the Quran doesn't say geospherical. It says shaped like an ostrich egg. Ostrich eggospherical, if you prefer.
Again, the atheist may say, your prophet, maybe he's super intelligent.
If the Quran is what we're judging Muhammad's intelligence and character by, then I can safely say he's a barbaric moron who diddled children.
Don't argue with him. You can continue. When I was in school, I had learned that the sun was stationary. It revolved but did not rotate about its own axis. So the atheist will say, is that mentioned in the Quran?
There is actually something I would like to point out here. I don't care what the Quran says about these things. It doesn't matter. The Quran has a load of unsubstantiated pig shit in it. It doesn't matter if you can cherry pick a few verses that aren't moronic. That doesn't validate the rest of the book. You are claiming it is the infallible word of God. To prove that wrong, all someone has to do is outline one thing that is wrong in it, which can be easily done. There are so many of them, I will add a link to show you a huge list of the things that are demonstrably wrong. Check the description. It's interesting to me that you refer to current scientific knowledge in order to prove cherry-picked statements in your holy book. Tell me, does that mean you acknowledge the scientific method's ability to accurately predict and interpret reality? Because if so, you need to acknowledge the fact that the scientific method also demonstrates that significant portions of your holy book are just fairy tales. You can't turn to science when it supports your ideas and ignore it when it proves them wrong.
I said, no, that is what I learned in school. When I passed my school in 1982, approximately 12 years back, I had learned the sun was stationary, did not rotate about its own axis. But the Quran says in Surah Anbiya, chapter number 21, verse number 33, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ. It is Allah who has created the night and the day. وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ. The sun and the moon. كُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. Each one traveling in orbit with its own motion.
Okay, so if it's so clearly stated in the Quran, then why did it take us so long for us to figure out that the sun rotates? Perhaps it's because the Quran verse is so vague that we could only reason that after the fact. You even mentioned before that we knew before the Quran that the sun has some form of motion. And which word did you choose from your own translation of the text? It wasn't rotate, it wasn't a specific type of motion, it was just a vague, unconstructive gibberish that couldn't be distinguished from something we already knew. Is God's infallible word just useless, vague statements?
Back in the days, when people had a geocentrical worldview, this verse made perfect sense. Mr. God made this giant one place for humans to be in and let the sun and the moon rotate around it. This view is no longer accurate, and so now you have to interpret a more accurate meaning into it. Unfortunately, this doesn't make your book any smarter, nor does it help your cause. By the way, did you not notice that there is a very closely related astronomical body having its own motion in the verse? Missing. Something like, I don't know, Earth?
So the Quran says that besides the sun revolving, it even rotates about its own axis. Who could have mentioned this in the Quran 1400 years ago? And the atheist will be silent. There'll be a long pause. Don't wait for the reply. You can keep on continuing.
The pause will be due to the person's mind struggling to comprehend how you arrived at that ridiculous conclusion after giving such a vague translation. You were really reaching on this one.
Today, science tells us that the universe is expanding, which is mentioned in the Quran 1400 years ago.
From a pre-Big Bang nebula that had merging heavens in it. Yep, super accurate.
In Surah Dhariyat, chapter number 51, verse number 47, the Quran speaks about the water cycle which we learnt in school. It was Sir Bernard Palissy in 1580 who first described the water cycle, how does the water evaporate from the ocean, forms into clouds, moves into the interior, fall down as rain. This water cycle is spoken about in great detail in the Quran in several verses. In Surah Az-Zumur, chapter 39, verse 21. In Surah Rum, chapter number 30, verse 24. In Surah Hijr, chapter 15, verse 22. In Surah Mu'minun, chapter number 23, verse number 18. In Surah Nur, chapter number 24, verse number 43. In Surah Rum, chapter number 30, verse 48. In Surah Araf, chapter number 7, verse number 17. In Surah Furqan, chapter number 25, verse 40 to 49. In Surah Fatir, chapter number 35, verse number 9. In Surah Yasin, chapter number 36, verse number 34. In Surah Mulk, chapter number 67, verse number 30. In Surah Tariq, chapter number 86, verse number 11. There are hundreds of verses in the Quran which only speak about the water cycle, which science has discovered recently.
Wow, that's an extensive list. I guess we should at least try to do some legwork here, seeing as you aren't willing to give actual quotes. So let's get to it. Number 1, chapter 39, verse 21. Do you not see that Allah sends down rain from the sky and makes it flow as springs and rivers in the earth? Then he produces thereby crops of varying colors. Then they dry and you see them turned yellow. Then he makes them scattered debris. Indeed, in that is a reminder for those of understanding.
Not looking good so far.
Okay, let's try the second one. Number 2, chapter 30, verse 20. And of his signs is that he shows you the lightning, causing fear and aspiration. And he sends down rain from the sky, by which he brings to life the earth after its lifelessness. Indeed, that are signs for a people who use reason.
Nope, not that one either.
Yeah, this isn't going great. Let's try the next one. Number 3, chapter 15, verse 22. And we sent the fertilizing winds and sent down water from the sky and given you drink from it, and you are not its retainers.
I'm starting to see a pattern already. Again, these quotes are vague, and if nothing, they appear to say that the rain is gifted from Allah. They don't mention evaporation at all. You promise detail, and we get vague statements that don't even mention the content of your argument. I'm pretty sure the rest of them read like this. Shall we keep going, Iseth?
Oh, yeah, let's move on.
We can keep on talking that today we have come to know that the plants have got sexes which we did not know earlier. Quran says in Surah Taha, chapter number 20, verse number 53, that the plants have got sexes, male and female.
No, it doesn't. It says different types of plants, not
You can go on talking about the scientific points. There are more than 1,000 verses in the Quran which speak about science. After every scientific fact, you ask the question, who could have mentioned that in the Quran?
If those quotes you are referencing are anything like your previous references, it's safe to say they're going to be extremely vague and hence non-applicable as evidence that the Quran is factual.
The only reply the atheist can give you is the creator, the cherisher, the manufacturer, the inventor,
Ow, stop it.
producer.
Ow.
We Muslims call him as Allah.
Fuck this, I'm getting out of here. This guy's crazy.
Freedom!
Thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, please consider clicking those fancy subscribe buttons on the side. And if you want to watch more, I put a video on top from the Rational channel and on the bottom one of mine. Have a wonderful evening.
Allahu Akbar!
This video is so haram!
JR.
Is that art? I don't know.
JR.
I have no idea. I told you I can't tell them apart.
How you arrived at that ridiculous conclusion after giving...
Gavin. I have no fucking clue.
Yeah.
I have no idea which one it is.
If those quotes are... You just can't...
You suck! You suck! You suck!
Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Ari, you pricks.
Oh, come on.
It could be interpreted in a
If
lot
those
of
quotes
different...
are...
Fuck! Damn it! Damn! You suck! Oh, are you serious?
Just...
Turn the
If those
mic on.
quotes are... You just can't...
You suck! You suck!
I trust you. Don't give a fuck. Let's go on.
It looks...
I get hot.
Okay.
I'm hot already, but I get hot as well.
Hey, when Muhammad split the moon in two, did people wait for like weeks for him to get to the moon? Like, 'cause they were standing on a battlefield, weren't they?
It just flies into the sky. People stand there like they're waiting for fucking Apollo to return.
Well, unless he traveled like speed of light or
If he traveled fast enough that it would be fast enough for them to notice it, it would be so fast that they wouldn't have seen it.
that's a paradox.
I don't know.